On the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad front, Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups have intensified, trying to stealthily cross the Ukrainian defense line, taking advantage of the thick fog. To prevent their actions, Ukrainian drone operators monitor them around the clock. Sometimes the Russian army manages to seep forward, and in such cases, the crews of drones from the 20th Operational Brigade of the National Guard Liubart are forced to take active action, picking up rifles. About 20 kilometers north of Pokrovsk, the area has become extremely dangerous. Explosions are constantly heard here, and the buzzing of enemy drones fills the sky. Local residents have almost disappeared, although separate instances of their presence are still recorded, the fighters say. Ukrainian soldiers not only survive but actively hold back the occupiers. The intensity is such that they move every day, little by little. Sometimes they manage to seep into the populated area, and street battles are currently taking place there, says Memphis, the commander of the strike UAV position of the 20th National Guard Operational Brigade, Liubart. Memphis, Fox, Yozhik, and Lynx. These are the crews of the heavy bomber from the 20th Brigade of the National Guard, Liubart. They conduct round-the-clock flights towards Pokrovsk, striking enemy positions. To prevent attempts by the enemy to cut off supplies, the crew of Memphis makes numerous flights to the front line, delivering necessary supplies to the infantry. The Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad front remains one of the hottest spots on the map of the Ukrainian conflict. The moment Ukrainian forces completed their withdrawal from the southern part of Myrnohrad, Russian troops escalated their assaults along the flanks, making a last attempt to achieve the encirclement they had already publicly claimed was accomplished. In order to support ground operations and break the Ukrainian defense, the Russians are relentlessly bombarding Myrnohrad and Pokrovsk with approximately 15,000 shells per day, with all assaults being preceded by intense preparatory barrages. Euromaidan press media outlet says Russians are also dropping on average 150 glide bombs per day, and as you can remember from a previous report, they are even using 3-ton Fab 3000 bombs to completely level every structure. As a result, there is not a single building that remains intact. In Myrnohrad, a town with a pre-war population of 48,000, high-rise buildings are still standing despite the continuous strikes, but all have already suffered damage, which compromises their ability to be used effectively as defense strongholds. Russian forces further capitalized on their foothold in the northeastern part of the town, treating it as a launch pad for fresh assaults and slipping out of their shelters the moment fog settled over the streets. 80% of these infiltrators are typically detected on the outskirts due to the heavy presence of Ukrainian drones overhead, but amid the relentless tempo of assaults, one Russian unit managed to slip past, unnoticed. Ukrainian Marines also took advantage of the fog, moving to encircle the unsuspecting Russian team, which was clearly operating blind without any aerial drone support. In this case, the entire Russian unit was ambushed and compelled to surrender on the spot, offering no resistance when confronted with an overwhelming disadvantage that would have otherwise meant certain death. Recognizing the hopelessness of their situation, the soldiers stepped out of their shelter with their hands raised, yielding themselves to the Ukrainian troops, Euromaidan press says. Against the backdrop of growing threats from the enemy, the actions of the Ukrainian military and their efforts to counter sabotage groups become significant not only for the defense of the territory, but also for ensuring the safety of the civilian population, which has become a hostage to the situation.
As a result of the rumble in Berdyansk, the Russians suffered losses: 9 invaders, an enemy Tiger, and 2 pickup trucks, the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense reported on Monday, showing a video. According to the GUR, on November 19, 2025, Russian invaders gathered at the entrance to temporarily occupied Berdyansk in Zaporizhia under a propaganda billboard. Their unhurried conversation was interrupted by a powerful explosion. As a result of a successful operation by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and the resistance movement to the Russian occupation, the Muscovites suffered losses among personnel and equipment. 5 invaders from the so-called Rosgvardia were destroyed, another 4 were seriously wounded, 2 enemy pickup trucks and a Tiger armored vehicle were damaged, reported the GUR. As the intelligence agency noted, the rumble in Berdyansk caused a commotion. Ambulances and fire trucks were brought to the site of the destruction of the Russian occupiers. The roar in Berdyansk caused a stir. Ambulances and fire trucks rushed to the scene of the destruction of the Russian occupiers, the statement said. The GUR noted that every war crime against Ukraine has consequences and reminded the Russian invaders of the inevitability of retribution. As a reminder, on November 29, 2 explosions were also heard in the temporarily occupied Berdyansk district of the Zaporizhia region. Ukrainian intelligence officers eliminated Kadirovites who had organized an illegal business involving stolen fuel. Earlier, the main intelligence directorate confirmed that the organizer of the torture chamber in Berdyansk had been eliminated. A Ford Kuga belonging to Yevgeny Alexandrovich Ananyevsky exploded in the city. Also in Berdyansk, traitor Mikhail Gritsai, who tortured Ukrainian prisoners and appropriated state property, was shot dead. According to intelligence, he was the so-called deputy mayor for infrastructure, housing and communal services, and fuel and energy complex of the occupation administration.